For over a decade, the Jodi Awards have been celebrating organisations that achieve excellence and push the boundaries of possibility for digital media and increasing participation for everyone. The Jodis, as they're affectionately called, recognise the best use of digital technology in widening access to information, collections, learning and creativity for disabled people in museums, galleries, heritage sites, libraries and archives. The awards were set up in 2002 by the Museums Computer Group, a cultural technology community of practice based in the UK, but with around 2,000 participants around the world. The inaugural awards took place in 2003, the European Year of Disabled People. Today, administered by the Jodi Matters Trust, a UK-registered charity, the Jodi Awards are given in memory of Jodi Matters, 1973 to 2001. Jodi was a tireless champion of equal access to culture, and the awards were set up to celebrate her passion and her energy. In her career at the British Museum and the RNIB, the Royal National Institute of Blind People, her work focused on improving the visitor experience to cultural activities for disabled people and the importance of involving disabled people in programming and project development. As one of the founding trustees of the award, I'm proud to be able to look back over a decade of the Jodis and the Jodi Matters Trust and how they've not only made an informed and compelling case for accessible design, but how they've raised the standards we expect from our sector. And it's in this way that today the Jodi Awards provide us, I think, with a fascinating prism through which to reflect upon the development of accessible digital design within the museum and gallery sector over the last 15 years. So imagine that triangular prism from your school days, from your science lessons, with white light coming in and being dispersed into a spectrum of different colours. It's that conceit that I want to play with today. The nominations, finalists and winners of the awards provide us, I would suggest, with a unique insight into the progresses made within our collective practice. To look at the Jodi Awards over the last decade is to be confronted with a story of growing responsiveness and agility in digital design, as well as developing confidence in understanding the diversity and differences of disability recognised by the museum sector. And it's also to see a story that exposes the enduring limits of digital literacy and universal design principles in the museum. There is value, I would argue, in considering each of these elements, digital, design, disability, through the prism of the other two. And as we do, in each case, what is refracted is the spectrum of our endeavour, both what has been achieved and what remains in motion. So let's consider the first of these, refracting digital. For instance, we might notice that back in 2005, museums such as Tyne and Weir museums were being awarded by the Jodis for their accessible website interface. Organisations such as Imperial War Museum in 2009 being recognised 4 years later for its progressive use of accessible portable devices. To New York Beyond Sight in 2010 being awarded for compelling design of mobile media for everyone. To, stunningly, MenCap Liverpool and the Access to Heritage Forum in 2012 with its creative exploration of a range of emergent embedded technologies. What this array of finalists and winners of the Jodi Awards dramatise for us is a sector seeking to be responsive and agile in its design of digital media. But with this growing confidence and agility, we can also concurrently trace the narrative within the nominations and winners of a museum and culture sector still managing a digital literacy deficit within its workforce. For example, our 2015 winners, Edinburgh City Libraries, with its beginners iPad groups and iPads game sessions for customers, alert us to this. I'm sharing with you here two photographs. The one on the left shows 4 members of the group around a white table and playing with the devices. The second image on the right has 2 very cheeky members of the group having great fun, laughing as they play their iPad game. The power of Edinburgh's project is as much in its coordination of regular training for staff and the building of a community of practice across practitioners and a number of other local authorities, as it is to the commitment to continual upgrading of assistive technology. The nomination to us explained how sustainability is central to the project. Assistive technology is upgraded along with other public computer equipment, and staff and volunteers receive regular training. Following a presentation on the project to the Scottish Parliamentary Cross-Party Group on Visual Impairment, Edinburgh Libraries are approaching other authorities to develop a community of best practice. In addition to existing partnerships with organisations such as RNIB, Guide Dog Scotland, Deaf Action, and Share the Vision, Edinburgh Libraries are putting partnerships in place with other national and local agencies and the voluntary sector in order to expand the reach of the project to people with sensory loss. The Jodi was awarded, however, as Edinburgh's approach was not the norm for the sector. It was singled out by the judges to provide inspiration and a role model to other institutions. As we hold it up to a decade of designing with disability in mind, our prism exposes here a sector still lacking the core digital literacy, transformative change, and delivery. Let's think about refracting design. Our prism is equally revealing if we focus it in another way. Reflecting on the ways museums have used digital media to support the experience of disabled users and visitors helps us to recognize and separate out, to scatter important developments in approaches to design. Consider, for instance, our Jodi Award winners from 2009, Disability Arts Online. And here I share just a fragment of part of their homepage, which shows their distinctive logo and a teasing image of someone holding a fragment of an artwork. Disability Arts Online, their winning citation read, is a website packed with news, events, and information which showcases deaf and disabled artists and their work. It's aimed at both the community of creators and the general arts audience. Content from DAO, staff and volunteers, writers, is mixed with blogs, including video blogs, from a network of deaf and disabled writers, artists, and performers. A whole community of people shape the content of the site. The site represents a unique perspective on the arts afforded by disabled people. So DAO is a striking example of how across the last decade we've experienced not just a rise in design approaches that involve users, but crucially how the act of participation beyond just user testing can be substantively transformative to the lives of the people, the co-designers involved. Like a growing number of Jodi Award winners we can trace across this last decade, DAO reminds us of the empowerment of participatory design. Likewise, we read in the nominations and citations of our winners a shifting discourse around the idea of the sensory. The theoretical informants of our applicants and our judges are from a new intellectual confidence, for museum studies at least, around sense and the body. The 13 years of the Jodi Awards have taken place at the same time that the Academy, and museology in particular, has followed what we might call a sensory turn, a new sensitivity to thinking about embodiment, to post-phenomenological encountering of the world, and the role of technology-mediated experience within this. The Jodi Awards demonstrate the substantive consequence of this sensory turn in museum studies. Finally, our third element, disability. To pivot once more and centre the third of our three concepts, disability, we find value again in considering it through the prism of digital and design. Or to phrase it another way, when we look at this collection of award-winning approaches to the design of digital things in the museum and culture sector, what do we notice about the changing conceptualization of disability? First, we see how exceptional it is still to apply universal design principles within museums. To conceive the museum, all its provision, all of its programming, all of its touch points and encounters with its audiences as accessible by design and designed for universal use by default is still not an orthodoxy within our sector. Consequently, the spectacular Canadian Museum for Human Rights was recognized by the Jodi Awards in 2015 as an exemplar for the sector. What can be achieved when at an early phase in a museum's creation, a decision can be made to, quote, embrace an inclusive design methodology across all aspects of the museological practice. I share here a photograph, a stunning dusk cityscape, which shows the mass of the new architecture of this building with a torch-like tower standing out of the top, a beacon of hope for human rights against the night sky. I share here another photograph, which is a sweep, a vista of 3 meter by 3 meter large lit images that seem like screens showing 20 faces that confront you as you come into one of the halls of the museum. And here another photograph that evidences the testing of mobile devices by the museum. On the left side, someone triggering a sound recording description of one of the videos playing on their own device. And on the right-hand side, someone also finding a signed interpretation of one of the videos. And again, some more drawings that evidence to us that in the design phase, in these blueprints and these ways of planning interface, that careful thought was given to all users and their interaction with all surfaces and spaces within the museum. The museum's Jodi nomination explained that they saw inclusive design and accessibility as drivers of innovation. We wanted every aspect of the in-gallery experience to be as rich and as usable as possible for the widest audience possible. Embracing this approach, we've not only realized innovation in the museum field, but most importantly, we've managed to realize a deeply layered experiential offer that is meaningful for all visitors. But as much as it was a celebration of this outstanding practice, the Jodi Award that year also signaled vividly how much the sector still needs to achieve. Finally, the decade of Jodi Awards, nominations, finalists, commendations, also animate for us a notable shift in the museum and culture sector's very conceptualization of disability. We can evidence across this decade of self-articulation and reward a sector not only becoming more nuanced and informed about disability, but a sector speaking with an increased confidence about the diversity and differences within disability. A disproportionately large number of the awards early winners were in recognition of projects that designed with blind and partially sighted visitors in mind. This confidence in thinking about visual impairment extended in time to hearing impaired users and the deaf community. It was then in its strategic partnership with the Rix Centre that the Jodi Awards made a very public statement about the imperative to include learning disability in our portfolio of accessible design. Today, the Jodi Awards are characterised by a wide portfolio of nominations that look to a growing horizon of very different needs and users. Positively and encouragingly, the awards' 10-year catalogue suggests an understanding of disability that, if not complete, then at least growing, and if not pervasive, then at least present. The prism of the Jodi Awards calls out the need for responsiveness and agility in museum digital design. It alerts us to the digital literacy deficit still within museums. It evidences the empowerment of participatory design. It demonstrates the substantive consequence of the sensory turn in museum studies. It exposes the limited reach of universal design in museums. And it calibrates the diversity and differences of disability recognized by the museum. Our thought experiment here has been, in one respect, an exercise in indirect observation. We've been trying to understand one concept, be it disability, design, or digital, through a consideration of the other two concepts around it. In doing so, we've been able to consider new perspectives on some familiar subjects. Through disability and design, we have another way of evidencing museums' story of digital transformation. Through disability and digital, we notice new aspects to the evolution of universal and participatory design within museums. And through design and disability, we find ways of documenting a shifting discourse within museums around disability. Therefore, as well as celebrating success and recognizing innovation, the Jodi Awards also, museologically, serve as a body of work through which we can understand evolving practice in museums. And this is perhaps a deeper significance for our discussion here. Rather than disability being something to be understood, something accommodated, disability instead here becomes a mature, informed, nuanced, present, established place from which to reflect upon practice and on the museum as a whole. This is disability academically activated for museums and for museum studies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do not know if we have any housekeeping. Katie, do you want to say something? I think there's always a need to have a little bit of information what is happening during the lunch break and the breakout sessions.
Oui, donc pendant l'intermède du repas, donc le repas sera au deuxième sous-sol, comme d'habitude pour ceux qui sont déjà venus, et donc sinon il y aura des personnes qui vont vous guider. Et pendant ce temps-là, il y aura également 2 moments pour des ateliers, qui se situeront dans la bibliothèque. C'est pareil, c'est fléché et il y aura des personnes pour vous guider. Donc des ateliers de différents intervenants qui vous présenteront leurs solutions. Donc n'hésitez pas à ne pas tous aller au restaurant en même temps et à profiter de ce moment pour aller voir les ateliers donc, qui sont à la bibliothèque. Merci.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you to the speakers, and have a very good lunch, everyone.